Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying all of these festive tutorials. Welcome to our 6th episode. Today we're going to be creating a holiday gift list in Procreate. I'm going to talk you through my whole process of designing and illustrating this gift list printable in Procreate. I'm also going to include this as a freebie for those of you who have signed up for that newsletter list that I have. You can just use the link in the original email and you should have access to all of the freebie downloads that I've included in there for this month. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Let's get started. So for this next tutorial, we are going to be working on a Christmas gift list printable that you can print out and have your kids fill out. My whole idea was to keep it minimal, have it fall in line with the holiday theme that we've been kind of working with. The last tutorial, you kind of saw a sneak peek of it. I kind of wanted it along the lines of this, something really simple in terms of what can be on the list, something that they want, they need, they'd wear, and they'd read, and then anything like special. So I like this concept. I'm going to keep the same kind of text, and I just found this online. If you search like Christmas list ideas, this is what pops up. There's a few different versions. It's just, I don't necessarily like some of the font choices in the text, and it feels a little clip arty, so I wanted to, put my own twist on things, but this is another example of it. So I ended up actually working in Procreate for this. So I'm going to launch Procreate, and I'm going to open up the file that I already started working on, and the idea is just to kind of have like the candy cane stripes, some lights, as well as that little reindeer guy, and then we'll add the text to the middle. Here's the darker version of the sketch so you can see it a little bit better. I'm just going to replay the sketch because I didn't capture myself illustrating this because it got inspired over the weekend. I knew I kind of wanted to work ahead on concepts, so I'll just replay the time-lapse recording. This is super simple. You can put your own twist on it. It doesn't need to be anything too complicated. And honestly, really just working with shapes. Like if you look at this little reindeer dude, he's literally just round ovals, shapes, and then, so what we're gonna do now is trace over this. You can keep it that pencil-y sketch vibe if you want. I want it to have a little bit more of a, this isn't a vector program, but I want it to have nice, clean, vector style lines. So I'm going to go with a monoline. I'm going to change my color to a black. I'm going to create a new layer above my sketch layer. I'm going to go into my sketch layer, click on the end, and I'm going to bring my opacity down so that it's easier for me to sketch over the lightened lines. So this might be a little hard to see on screen. I'm going to do a screen recording just so you can see it as well. And then I'm just going to go over and outline, making sure I'm on the proper layer. And then what you'll find is the closer you get to your image, the easier it is to outline it. So it's okay to zoom in. And it's also a good idea to kind of like reorientate your canvas to make it easier for you to follow the lines that you've created so you get more of a natural look to your outlines. Also, if you find that your hand's a little shaky, my hand is kind of very shaky when I draw. So what I do to fix this is I go into my brush settings. So I click on my brushes, click on the brush that I'm working on, and it gives me this Brush Studio Stroke Properties. And I increase the streamline. If you look at the streamline here, I have it all the way up to like 90%. And again, my hand is shaky, so that just makes it easier for me to use. So once I'm done outlining this little guy, this is what he'll look like. And now what I want to do is create this white space inside of the sketch, and then I can go through and trace over the little light bulbs. What I really like about Procreate is that you're able to create really nice, precise lines. And I would also suggest keeping everything outlined on the same layer, and then we'll create new layers for our coloring options. Well, what's really nice is Procreate has this really nice snapping effect. You can just draw a straight line. If you hold it, it'll snap straight, and then you can adjust it. So I'll get in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. If we're in here, we're trying to trace this line. My line's a little wobbly, but if I just keep holding down as I stop, it'll give me a nice straight line. So I'm going to utilize that as I create this line, like border frame around the center. And it's okay if you go over certain lines because you can always go back and erase. And then I'm going to select my eraser, and I'm going to decrease the size of my eraser all the way down. I'm using that same mono line, and then I'm just going to come in really close and clean up the lines that are over what I need them to be. And you can zoom in really close so you can get really fine detail. Alright, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go in and do the little lights that I have here. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush, my monoline, and then I'm going to zoom in and kind of follow. And again, like I said, it's okay to overshoot what you're doing. It doesn't need to be perfect, but you want it to be as close as you can get it. And if you find that any of the lines look a little wobbly, you can just go back through, erase them, or redo them. I think this looks just fine. I'm going to go in and erase this section that I went over. And now I'm going to add the little light. I'm going to turn my canvas upside down just so that it's easier for me to draw these. I'm going to trace over my original drawing as close as possible. Cleaning up the lines, because as you can see, my lines are kind of like sloppy and quick and sketchy. So the idea here is to give yourself some nice clean line work. And you're going to want them to be a little bit curved. That's okay, to give them more of a lifelike appearance. Now what I'm going to do is create these angled lines to kind of give me that black and white effect that I'm going for the candy cane stripes. So all I'm going to do is just like what I did with these long lines, I'm going to create just straight lines at an angle. And again, if anything kind of overshoots, it's okay. Just go into your eraser to erase it down. If you find that you do something that you don't want to do or that you kind of mess up a line, all you have to do is double tap with 2 fingers to undo. So once we're done outlining this is what the final sketch will look like. The lines just look a lot cleaner. You can go back through and just double check to make sure that there's no stray lines that you don't want. Once I'm done with the outlines, I can begin to color this in. What I'm gonna do is keep in mind the color story that I had with the stickers that we originally created at the very beginning. So I'm going to turn off my sketch layer and just leave that line layer, and then I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on that plus, and I'm going to drag this layer underneath the line layer, and this is going to be my color layer. I'm going to rename it color, and then I'm going to go to my sketch layer or to my line work layer, rename it line work, and then I'm going to click on the little icon within my line work layer. It's going to pull up this additional menu. What I want to do is change this line work to a reference layer. So basically this will allow us to drag and drop colors into this color space, and it'll stay within the parameters of the closed lines. So I'm going to click on the color layer, and I'm going to go to my palettes because I have a palette already with some of the lines from that holiday series. So I'm going to keep in mind the colors that I used in this original set of stickers that we made at the very beginning. So what I'm going to do is go to that file here in Procreate. I'm going to click on the palettes, and then I'm going to click the little plus icon, and we're going to create a new palette. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the color drop tool to pick, or the color picker tool, to pick up these colors and add them to our palette. So to do that, we just have to take our finger, hold it down on the color we're trying to select, and then you'll see this little circle pop up. And then we'll go into our color palette, click on the new color palette, and click on one of the squares, and it'll give us our colors. I'm just going to go one by one and do this. I'm going to select the untitled section of the palette, and I'm going to rename it Holiday Colors. And I'm going to set it as my default for now so that when I go back into my other file, I will have access to it. So now when we go back to this other file, we click on our color picker, you'll see the first option in our palettes is the color palette that we created. So we do need to add a couple of colors to this color palette though, because I want to paint this little reindeer brown. So we're going to add a brown to this color palette as well. So I'm going to click on my disc, and then I'm going to find a brown that I think will work well with this. And once I do, I'm just going to click on my color palette to add it to the color palette series I already have. And then I'm going to need a lighter brown as well for the muzzle part of his face. Okay, now that I have all the colors, I've already selected my Linework layer as a reference. We can begin to color in this outline. So the first thing I'm going to do is select that darker brown and then drag it from the circle into the shape of the little reindeer. And don't worry about the reindeer antlers. We're going to go back through and color that in by hand. Now we're going to go to the lighter brown, click on the color picker, drag it, and it'll fill in the lower part of his face. And then go back to the color picker and then just go through and do this whole process to finish filling in the rest of the color story in this whole image. So I'm gonna make this be like a red and white candy cane stripe on the outside, and then the inside will be a cream. I find using the reference option just makes things a lot easier and quicker when it comes to coloring in Procreate. But if you so choose to, you can go through and color by hand as well. This is just a quicker and more efficient way of coloring. And the thing to note with this though is that whatever you're filling needs to be a completely enclosed shape. Now what I want to do is go through and color in our lights. I'm just going to use the colors that I pulled just one by one and then repeat them as I go. I'm going to pick an additional color, just like a nice kind of lighter gray, to fill in the little sockets of the light. And before we get into adding the text section of this, I want to jump into this little reindeer guy really quickly and give him a little bit of a 3D effect. We're going to add a shadow layer and a highlight layer. So let's add a layer above the color. We're going to rename it Shadow. And then we're going to create another layer and we're going to rename it to Light or Highlight. For the shadow layer, we're going to click on the little N. We're going to drag our opacity down to about 39%, and we're going to change the N from normal to multiply, and it'll change it to an M. And we're going to keep that gray color that we selected because I think that'll work just fine. And we're just going to keep in mind maybe the shadows coming from above. So we'll add a shadow underneath his nose here. And if you find that this gray is too light, you can just darken it a bit. And then just make sure you add that color to your palette so you don't lose it. And this just gives you a bit of a shadow underneath his nose. We'll do some shadow underneath his antlers here. We'll also add some shadow on his ears as well, and on the under parts of his antlers. And we'll do the same thing to this other side, just following the shape of the antler. And I think that's good for now. It's just a little something extra to give it some 3D elements. Now we're going to go to the highlight and we're going to just select a brighter white. And I'm going to switch from my monoline here to a shale brush just so that I have some texture. And I'm going to go through and just give the antlers and these different sections some highlights, keeping in mind where the light might hit. Now I'm going to go to the little lights here and add those highlights as well to kind of give them the effect of being bright. Once we're done coloring everything, we can begin to add the text and the lines to be filled out. So what's really nice is with Procreate, you can add text really easily. You'll go to your actions toolbar, you're going to select add text, and you will get your text options. So the options we're going to do, I want, I need, I'd wear, I'd read. I'm going to type in I want. And we're going to double click inside of the text to highlight it, and it'll highlight in blue, and it'll give us this additional pop-up here which allows you to change the font type and all of that, if it's going to be bold, all of those things. So I think I'm going to go with the American typewriter since that's what we've been using. I'm going to increase the size just a bit. And I'm going to do bold just so that it's easier to see. And then I want to make sure I left align it. And actually I'm going to go with semi-bold instead. I think 53 font should be fine. And then I'm going to hit done. And I'm actually going to update the color though from white to a black. And to do that, all you have to do is select the layer, click on your color picker, and then drag it if you are in your value or in your disk, pull it to the color that you want. So once I've done that, I'm gonna move it wherever I would like it on my page. And then I'm just gonna duplicate this 3 more times and then update the text for them. So to edit the text, we're gonna click on the layer, double click in the A so that you get this pop up, and then you can select edit text and it'll allow you to edit your text. And then we're going to do the same thing for the rest of these. Click on the A, get your options, select edit text, click inside, click on your keyboard. So now I kind of want to move all of these together. So to do that, I'm going to click on my first layer. I'm going to go into my layers panel, click on my first layer, and then just drag across the rest of them so that they're all selected together. And I'm going to group these. And then that will allow me to kind of move these and adjust them as needed wherever I'd want. And now what I want to do is add another layer so that we can add the lines here. So to do that, I'm just going to select my brush tool, go back to my monoline. I'm going to increase it just a bit to about 30% or so. And then I'm going to draw a line that can be filled out from the text. And again, using the concept of like the place and pull so that it locks into place. So you don't have to draw a straight line exactly, because you'll be able to create a straight line once you've placed the pen down. And again, if you don't like something, just 2-finger tap the screen and it'll undo it. And then I'm going to duplicate this text again, and I'm going to write a little section to say thank you. So I'll go into my group layer. I'm just going to click on the layer. I'm going to left swipe it, and I'm going to select duplicate it. And then I'm going to drag that layer out of my group. And then I'm going to move it down. And then I'm going to click on it in my layers panel again, select edit text, go into my keyboard here, and then just type in thank you, Santa. And that way it'll give your kid or anyone who is writing this space to write their name. And this is the final little project. So now what I'm going to do is export this as a PDF and print it out so that whoever would like to fill it out can fill it out. So to export it, what you need to do is select that little wrench icon, hit share, and then share it however you'd like. I'm going to select PDF for now. I'm going to do the best, and then I'm going to save it to my files, and then I'm going to rename it. And then I'm going to go into my file system and I'm going to find where I saved it. And then I have it right here, so I'm going to click on it. And then I'm going to select this little share icon since I'm printing this directly from my iPad. I'm going to select print. And then I'm going to select the printer I'm going to print it from. And then I'm going to hit print. And it should send it to my printer. And this is the final printout. I thought it turned out cute. I wanted to keep it big and easy for little kiddos to write with their big handwriting. And you could actually fold this up and place it inside of the envelope that we made in our last project so that you can ship it off to the North Pole. So I just printed this off on a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And that is it for this tutorial. Hope you guys found it really helpful and interesting and just a fun little project that you can work on with your kiddos or your family, or just to practice working in Procreate and working with the text functions and the image and coloring functions as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the last 2 videos that are coming out in the next couple of weeks. Bye!